Hi, today in this video I'm going to be taking you through argument analysis. So we're going to look at what argument analysis is and how we can actually do it in our writing. So first of all, what is argument analysis? Well, in this unit we're going to be looking at the ways in which people make arguments about issues, and we're going to look at it through speeches and articles. So the first thing we need to look at is features of articles. So when we are doing an argument analysis, we need to look for information about the issue, the contention, the purpose, the arguments, the audience, and the deliberate language choices that the writer or speaker is making. So for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to group these features like this. So first of all, we're going to look at issue and contention, then audience and purpose, and finally language choices and arguments. Alright, the first one, issue and contention. So the issue is the topic of the debate. For example, greyhound racing is in Australia. That's a topic, we can see that. It doesn't take a side either way, it's just saying greyhound racing in Australia is an issue that is debated in Australian society at the moment. The contention is the position that the speaker or the author is taking. For example, it might be greyhound racing in Australia should be banned, or it might be greyhound racing in Australia needs tighter legislation. So it's what they actually want to happen, or what they're arguing about that issue. Okay, audience and purpose. So we're going to start with audience. Speakers and writers aim their arguments at a particular audience. Some things to look for when identifying the audience are, first of all, who do you think will care about this issue? For example, I'm not particularly interested in AFL, so if an article has been written and published about, arguing something to do with the AFL, I'm probably not going to be the target audience for that writer because I'm not likely to care about the issue. The second thing we can look for is the publisher. So you look at where it's been published. For example, an article published in Girlfriend magazine will be seen by teenage girls. So you're not likely to find articles that discuss the issue of the state budget in Victoria, for example, in Girlfriend magazine, because it's not going to be seen by people who are likely to be interested in that topic. And finally, a description of the audience. Sometimes the text tells us who the audience is. For example, if the author asks readers to protect our local libraries, we know that they're going to be talking to people who are invested in libraries and who would care about protecting them, so they're probably speaking to book lovers. How do we know who the audience is? So to give yourself a better picture of the audience of a piece, consider the following points. First of all, they are who? They are worried about what? This issue affects them because why? The things that are important to them are what? And that just helps to give you a little bit more of an idea of who your audience is and what they want. Okay, so there are three kind of different types of audiences that you can have, and they vary in the ways in which they are exposed to the contention or exposed to the issue, and how much they're likely to agree or disagree with the author. So, for example, if an author is writing a piece that's intended for an audience that already agrees with them, they're more likely to react well to a bold and provocative opening. Arguments in a piece like this will get straight to the point and will come across as more extreme because audiences who already agree with that topic are not going to be offended by that. Audiences who are on the fence about an issue will need to be persuaded. So the opening might try an emotional approach, such as beginning with an anecdote. And if you remember, anecdotes are little stories, personal stories about things that people have experienced, and usually they're used to provide a bit of a personal touch to an issue, and to show how certain issues and ideas can affect people individually. In contrast, people who disagree, audiences who disagree with the author, will require a much more gentle approach. The opening might recognise a difference of opinions, for example. If an author is writing an article designed for people who disagree with them, it's not going to work if they take an approach of being really aggressive and really kind of over the top, because people who disagree with the topic are going to read that and think, oh, this person's too emotional, they don't know what they're saying, and the author's not going to get what they want out of it. It's really important to remember that audiences are not accidental. So the author or the speaker knows who their audience is going to be, and they make language choices deliberately to influence that audience. The other thing that you really need to remember is that the reader is not always the audience. I'm perfectly capable of reading an article about AFL. Okay, that makes me the reader. I'm the person reading the article, but I'm not the audience, because I'm not the person who the author had in mind when they were writing the article. So I'm perfectly capable of reading it, but I might not understand exactly what's going on. I might, not have the full context needed to kind of be persuaded of the contention. All right, the purpose of a text is basically what the writer or speaker wants to happen about their contention. For example, a writer writes an article about greyhound racing. The audience is people who are already against greyhound racing, so the purpose of the article isn't going to be that greyhound racing should be banned, because the people who are the audience already think it should be banned. So if you have an article that's about greyhound racing and it's for people who are against greyhound racing, the purpose of the article is more likely to be something like getting the audience to sign a petition to end greyhound racing, or getting the audience to donate to a charity that helps greyhounds, something like that. The purpose is always strongly connected to the audience, so that's why we've grouped these two together in this presentation. The first step to finding out an author's or a speaker's purpose is to work out who the audience is, and then it will become, or even vice versa, if you're struggling to work out what the purpose is, work out who the audience is first. Okay, language choices and arguments. Writers and speakers create arguments in texts to persuade their audience of what they want done to achieve their purpose. We can analyse arguments by using the what, how, why structure, which we'll get to in a moment. Deliberate language choices. Writers and speakers use language to achieve their purpose. They choose words and phrases that will have the maximum effect on their intended audience, and we call these deliberate language choices. It might be an adjective used to elicit an emotional response from the audience, or it might be a quote from a scientist to support the author's argument and give it credibility and make it believable. We analyse the deliberate language choices by including them as quotes in the how part of the what, how, why structure, which I'm going to take you through now. Alright, so first of all we have what. What is the speaker or writer actually saying? What's the argument that they're making? Then we have how. How is this shown to the audience? So here we'd use quotes and evidence of deliberate language choices that we can see in the text. And then finally, why. Why is this having an impact? What does this position the audience to think, feel, or do? So why is really, really key, and that's the part where you've got to link the argument that's being made and the language that is being used to make the argument to the audience and the purpose. All right, we have an example here. So this little excerpt is taken from Leonardo DiCaprio's speech to the UN about climate change. So we know the issue is climate change, and we know that the audience is world leaders and people who are attending the conference. Our planet cannot be saved unless we leave fossil fuels in the ground where they belong. An upheaval and massive change is required now. One that leads to a new collective consciousness, a new collective evolution of the human race, inspired and enabled by a sense of urgency from all of you. We know that reversing the course of climate change will not be easy, but the tools are in our hands if we apply them before it is too late. So here, if we look at what the author's doing, what's the argument that's being made? Well, Leonardo DiCaprio is saying that there needs to be immediate action on climate change. How is he showing us this through his deliberate language choices? Well, we can see it through the phrase a sense of urgency and through before it is too late. Then why is he doing this? What does he want to happen? Well, he's doing this because it encourages his audience, the world leaders, to understand that this is urgent and that they need to act now. So he wants action from them. That's the purpose of this speech. Okay, hopefully that has helped explain argument analysis to you.